everybody, what's up? This is Unilateral Everything, episode 14, finishing up the max week. So, did all the retesting for maxes, all the ones that I'd done prior to stopping my squatting and starting only doing unilateral work. So that was pretty interesting. I'd thrown some unilateral overhead stuff in there as well, so had done some original testing on that and tested that this week in regards to at least a shoulder press. So did that this week. Very interesting because most of my lifts did not go up, which was kind of expected. However, this is something I noticed. I noticed it right on the first day doing a front squat max. My velocities that I can hit on lifts went up. And I really wish I had put like a tendo unit, so basically a unit that'll track bar velocities. I wish I had attached that to my lifts when I first maxed way back in July, because I really would have loved to have seen the comparison of those lifts kind of going forward, just to see what those velocities are now. But I at least know that I can move bars much more quickly now, especially on my squatting, than I did back then. So ended up tying my front squat PR, ended up tying my shoulder press PR. Not the original max I did was 170, hit 180. So actually tied my snatch PR. So that's the third time I've ever hit 125 on that. So that was pretty good. Clean and jerk, did that today. Possibly could have set a new PR. I tied my PR clean and then almost blacked out before the jerk, so I just dropped it. Like, I felt myself getting lightheaded. So deadlift, tied PR there, and then let's see, back squat's the one that's interesting. Prior to starting this, I had done a back squat PR of 465 or 460. I think I tested at 455, and I tried that again when I tested that, and I got about 3 to 4 inches down, and I just felt everything starting to buckle, so I just bailed. Just wasn't feeling good that day in general, but also just stuff just goes wrong sometimes, and I play it safe, so I bailed on that one. So yeah, there's a lot of things that could have gone into that as well. It's not just my legs getting weaker. I was pretty fatigued that day because I did a lot of high impact plyometric work on Wednesday. I worked as an assistant coach for a wrestling team, just kind of volunteering my time there. And so on Wednesday morning, I did a ton of plyometric work, and then also retested all these stuff we evaluate our kids on in our facility. And so I was testing like my sprinting ability, jumping ability, things like that. I think I was just, honestly, my body was just kind of trashed when I did that testing, because the only thing that went up was improved was my shuttle run, which I didn't do that hot on anyway. So the rest of the things went down. Vertical jump went down by like half an inch. I did it on a jump mat, and I did it on a Vertex. I put a mat under the Vertex just to see the comparison. And so yeah, that was something that was a little interesting to deal with, was the fatigue going into back squat. An interesting point that was brought up, it's in the comments section on, I think, episode 1 or episode 2, the concept that I may have lost core strength because I wasn't doing a lot of sub-parallel work. And I'm not sure if that necessarily is true, but something I did notice, and there's a lot of different factors that could go into this. Part of it could be the physical therapy work that I'm doing. We're trying to get my hip flexors to get a little bit stronger, because I've been compensating using my obliques to take over for my hip flexors. in terms of posture for a couple years now because of an injury I sustained back in 2016. Same thing, if you go back to episode 1, that's the injury I'm talking about. And not a lot of back pain, it was just this dull ache. So yes, my front squats move faster, my back squats move faster, but there's just like this little tiny feeling of just kind of aching going on. So I'm not sure if that's a core strength issue or if that's just my hip flexors trying to do their job again and spinal realignment happening, and my back's just not used to it. So that's going to be pretty interesting. Other things I tested, I did some jumps on a force plate with a jump mat on the force plate, and I wasn't 100% sure what I was looking for. I wanted to see if there's a way to kind of correlate stretch shortening cycles and flight times, and obviously if you have a faster stretch shortening cycle, then you're probably going to jump higher. But if you track, at least this is the way that I understand it, if you track your counter movement jump on a force plate and you look at the stretch shortening cycle, so the moment you create force peaks and then the force goes down, then kind of that whole down and up jump, what you're looking at is this up and over kind of scenario. And something I realized is mine doesn't go, you want a nice smooth like arc and then this quick drop, and then there'd be a gap, and then you'd hit the force plate again and there'd be another spike and then drop again as you baseline. Mine kind of looks something like this though, and if this is time going that way, I drop down so I create force and then I lose a little bit, and then it goes back up as I apply more force going vertically and then back down. And the way I understood this, because I heard a researcher talking about this, is you can kind of see isometric ability, I guess isometric tendon strength and muscle strength in that little time span. And so if you're not having a super smooth, kind of this super smooth arc on that time span of force applications, then you can kind of identify what you need to work on. It could be eccentric strength, concentric strength, or both, or isometric strength, or all three if you really just suck at applying force. So that first little peak would be your eccentric strength and decelerating your body, but you want that isometric strength to be able to hold that potential energy and reapply force very, very quickly. And so what ends up happening is you see this very, very tiny peak, and then a little bit dip, and then an even smaller peak, and that's kind of that force being applied back into the force plate to jump. So looking at potentially doing some isometric work, but not in the situation of like pause squats. That's the only really iso work I've done. So trying to redesign a program that is going to allow me to do that. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at with the testing week. So I'm still kind of gathering information on all of these things. I only tracked velocity on one lift this week, and that was deadlift max. So trying to get all that information put down into a way that I can implement it into a program in the coming weeks. So that's episode 14. I'm going to go into implications and kind of how to apply unilateral work in the next episode. That way I have just 15 episodes of this before I come up with some other random crazy idea. So that's Unilateral Everything, episode 14. Thanks for following along, and we'll talk about implications and stuff next week and do a complete final wrap up. So until then, see you guys later.